Most people wake up every morning without realizing that the very first words they speak determine the vibration of their entire day. Edgar Cayce, known as the Sleeping Prophet, revealed something profound about those first moments after awakening. A moment when your soul is still half in the spiritual world and half in the physical one. According to Cayce, this brief window is when you are most open to the divine frequencies that align you with Christ consciousness itself. He explained that your words at dawn are not mere sounds, they are commands to the universe, shaping the reality that unfolds before you. What you say when you open your eyes can either connect you to divine harmony or pull you into the chaos of human thought. This isn't superstition, it's a spiritual law Cayce discovered through hundreds of documented readings. In this video, we'll uncover the exact phrase Cayce said can attune your mind to the energy of Christ the moment you awaken. Before we begin, tell me in the comments, what are the first words that usually leave your mouth when you wake up? Because after today, you may never want to say them the same way again. When you open your eyes each morning, you step into a silent moment that very few people ever recognize as sacred. The air feels still, the world hasn't yet demanded anything from you, and your thoughts begin to form like ripples on a calm surface. Edgar Cayce taught that this is not just the start of another day, it is the rebirth of your consciousness into the physical world. Each awakening, he said, mirrors the soul's return from the realms of spirit. During sleep, your spirit wanders through dimensions beyond human sight, connecting with the source, replenishing the energy that sustains your body and mind. But when you awaken, the bridge between those two worlds remains open for only a brief instant. In that instant, what you say, what you feel, and what you think determines whether you carry divine light or confusion into the hours ahead. Cayce's readings revealed that words are more than expressions. They are spiritual forces. Every vibration of sound carries energy that influences your aura, your emotions, and even the people you meet. He described them as living currents of thought made audible. This is why the first words you speak upon waking are so powerful. They are not random. They are a spiritual declaration that sets the tone for your soul's alignment throughout the day. Cayce often said that the soul responds instantly to affirmations of truth and love, because those are the vibrations of Christ consciousness itself. To speak words of gratitude or unity, the moment you awaken, is to synchronize with the divine intelligence that governs the universe. Most people, however, open their eyes and immediately speak words of worry or habit. I'm tired. Another day. I have so much to do. Without realizing it, they are programming their entire spiritual system to operate on frequencies of stress, resistance, and fear. Cayce warned that this is one of the greatest unseen errors of modern life, the failure to sanctify the beginning of consciousness each morning. To him, the morning was not just a physical event, it was a spiritual initiation repeated daily. He said that even the Christ within us waits for that moment, when we choose how to enter the day. When we begin with irritation or complaint, we close the inner channel to that divine presence. But when we begin with reverence, gratitude, and acknowledgement of the Creator, the entire vibration of our being rises toward the Christ pattern. He explained that Christ consciousness is not a concept, it is a living frequency accessible to every soul that chooses to attune itself through thought, word, and intention. Cayce described it as the ideal vibration of love in perfect harmony with the divine will. To align with it is to see beyond the material, to sense the invisible order behind all things. And it begins, he said, with the simplest act, the words you choose when you awaken. Let your first thought be of God, he told one seeker, and the day will not belong to confusion. That single instruction carries more power than volumes of philosophy. Because the moment you open your eyes, your consciousness is like a field of fresh snow, pure, receptive, untouched. Whatever you imprint upon it first becomes the foundation of your entire day. So what should we say upon waking? Cayce didn't prescribe a single formula, but he emphasized the intent behind the words. One of his readings offered this phrase, "Father, let my thoughts, my words, my deeds be in harmony with thee." When spoken with awareness, these words do more than express devotion, They vibrate through your entire energy field, realigning every cell of your body to the frequency of divine purpose. Science now speaks of brainwave states at the edge of sleep, theta frequencies associated with intuition, healing, and creativity. Cayce was speaking of this same sacred state long before modern instruments could measure it. He knew that in those first moments of waking, your mind is still open to suggestion, and your spirit still echoes the energy of higher realms. It is then, he said, that you must speak consciously, so that heaven and earth meet within your words. Before we go deeper into how this practice transforms your soul and why it was central to Cayce's vision of spiritual evolution, take a moment to interact. Leave a comment below telling me what your first words usually are in the morning. Do they invite peace or tension, gratitude or fatigue? Your answer might reveal more than you think. And if this message is already touching your spirit, take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel, because what we're about to uncover will completely change the way you see your mornings forever. Cayce taught that the soul is not separate from God. It is a spark of the same divine flame. When you awaken, that spark stirs within you, seeking direction. If you guide it toward the light through conscious words, it expands, fills you with calm, and radiates outward. But if you ignore it, the spark dims under the noise of human worry. This is why Cayce insisted that the moment of awakening is sacred. It's the instant the divine spark listens for its command. Your first words are like a compass. They tell your spirit where to go. Imagine the difference between starting your day with "I can't handle this" versus "I am one with the source of all strength." One creates walls, the other opens heaven. Cayce said that this alignment isn't just spiritual poetry, it's energetic law. Every vibration, every thought moves through the body's energy centers and either harmonizes or disrupts the flow of life itself. In one of his readings, he explained that our bodies are instruments tuned by thought and emotion. Just as a stringed instrument goes out of tune with neglect, the soul drifts from harmony when our daily awareness is careless. The purpose of morning prayer or affirmation, he said, is not to beg for favor, but to tune the instrument of consciousness so that it resonates with divine will. This is what it means to align with the energy of Christ. The Christ vibration, Cayce said, is pure love, made active through thought. It's the pattern of creation itself, selfless, luminous, unending. When you speak words of gratitude upon waking, you are not merely thanking God. You are harmonizing your frequency with that creative force. Think about how a musician begins a performance. They don't start playing immediately, they tune. The act of tuning determines the beauty of every note that follows. Cayce believed our mornings should be the same. Before we rush into action, we must tune the instrument of our soul. He warned that neglecting this moment is like beginning a symphony out of tune. No matter how hard you play, the music will never sound right. So when you first open your eyes, take a breath and remember that the first sound you make, your words, your sigh, even your thoughts, set your vibration for the day. Speak deliberately. Whisper words that call the divine to join you in the physical world. He also said that the divine responds instantly to recognition. When you acknowledge the presence of God in those first moments, you are not summoning something distant. You are awakening the Christ energy already within you. Cayce's concept of the Christ within was revolutionary for many of his time. He described it as the part of your being that remembers its unity with the Creator. It is your original consciousness before fear and doubt entered the human experience. To speak words that affirm this truth is to call that inner Christ to the surface, to let divine intelligence think, act, and love through you. The phrase, "Let my thoughts, words, and deeds be in harmony with thee," is not a prayer of separation, but of remembrance. It reminds the soul of who it already is. Cayce said that when you awaken with this awareness, the rest of the day unfolds under a divine rhythm. Coincidences align, intuition sharpens, and peace replaces anxiety. You begin to sense a subtle order in everything, an invisible hand guiding events with purpose. He often told people that miracles are not violations of natural law, but expressions of it through higher understanding. The true miracle is not external, It's the transformation of your perception. When you start your day attuned to the Christ vibration, you don't escape life's challenges. You meet them from a higher state of consciousness, where fear no longer dictates your response. He reminded us that the energy of Christ is not limited to religion. It is universal, eternal, woven into the very structure of creation. It is love acting intelligently. When you wake and declare your unity with that energy, you become a living channel through which divine purpose flows into the world. The smallest tasks, when done in this awareness, gain sacred meaning. Washing dishes becomes an act of service. Speaking kindly becomes a form of prayer. Every heartbeat echoes the rhythm of the Creator. Cayce said that living this way does not require withdrawal from the world. It requires awakening within it. And that awakening begins in the first minute of the morning. Many of his readings encouraged people to experiment with this, to wake, speak consciously, and observe how life changes. Those who practiced it reported a deeper peace, a sense of guidance throughout the day, and a quiet joy that no circumstance could erase. It wasn't imagination, it was alignment. Cayce explained that divine law responds to vibration, not effort. When your first vibration each day carries gratitude and love, the law of attraction between your soul and the divine becomes active. You attract experiences that reflect the energy you declared upon waking. We spend so much of life searching for miracles, waiting for signs, begging for direction. Yet Cayce's message was simple. The gate to heaven opens every morning, and most people sleepwalk through it. To awaken with awareness is to meet God in the threshold between night and day, and in that brief moment, what you say decides what world you walk into. Cayce believed that humanity's greatest blindness is forgetfulness, the soul's tendency to wake up each morning and forget what it truly is. He said that every sunrise is an invitation from God to remember that you are more than flesh, more than your name, more than yesterday's worries. You are spirit made in the image of the Creator, sent here to learn how to express divine love in a world that has forgotten its source. That's why, according to Cayce, the moment right after waking is so sacred. Your consciousness stands between two worlds, the eternal and the temporary. What you choose to say then determines which one will lead your thoughts for the rest of the day. If you speak words born of light, you strengthen your connection with the spiritual world. If you speak words born of fear, you anchor yourself deeper into illusion. He described this morning moment as the echo of your nightly journey through the spiritual dimensions. While your body sleeps, your spirit travels. It communes with guides, absorbs lessons, and renews its strength in the presence of God. When you awaken, the memories of those encounters fade quickly, but their energy remains. Cayce said that the right words can help you keep that divine energy alive throughout the day. Saying something as simple as, "Father, guide me today," reopens the channel that connects the sleeping soul to divine purpose. Those who make this a daily habit begin to feel what Cayce called the quiet certainty of divine companionship. It is not emotion, it is awareness. The awareness that you are never alone, because God is consciousness itself, and you are a spark of that consciousness walking the earth. He warned that people often confuse spiritual alignment with mere positivity. But to Cayce, aligning with the energy of Christ was not about repeating cheerful phrases or denying pain. It was about surrender, choosing love even when your emotions resist it, choosing faith even when the outcome is uncertain. The Christ energy is not an idea. It's a frequency that exists beyond judgment, and every soul can attune to it through discipline of thought. Your morning declaration, he said, is your daily tuning. It doesn't matter whether you feel inspired or tired, hopeful or hopeless. What matters is that you declare your loyalty to the light before the shadows of the day can claim your mind. Cayce once said, "Mind is the builder." That phrase appears in dozens of his readings. It means that thought creates the structure through which your soul experiences life. The body is the tool, the mind is the builder, and the spirit is the architect. When you awaken and declare something aligned with divine will, you give your builder a blueprint made of light. Throughout the day, that blueprint shapes your reactions, your choices, and the kind of energy you attract. If you begin each day complaining, your builder uses those materials, and you end up constructing walls of limitation. But if you begin with gratitude, you build bridges. You become a channel through which divine purpose can express itself. Cayce's readings also taught that these moments of alignment accumulate. Every morning spent in conscious attunement adds another layer of harmony to your soul's vibration. Over time, this becomes your new normal. Peace replaces fear, intuition becomes clearer, and your presence itself brings healing to others. You stop reacting to the world and begin radiating through it. People may not understand why they feel calmer around you, but Cayce explained it perfectly. The Christ vibration within one soul can awaken the memory of God within another. That's why he called each morning an act of service. By aligning yourself with divine energy, you quietly help to lift the collective vibration of humanity. Now pause for a second and think about it. How many mornings in your life have you lived unconsciously, letting the first words out of your mouth be complaints, doubts, or distractions? How different would your life look if, starting tomorrow, you treated those first 60 seconds as holy ground? The world will not slow down for you, but the divine will. That small silent window between sleep and awareness is where heaven listens. It's where you can say, "Here I am, Father. Use me today." And heaven answers. If this truth resonates with your heart, take a moment to support this message. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share in the comments what you'll begin saying tomorrow morning. Because every time you affirm the light, you strengthen it, not only within yourself but in every soul that hears your words. Cayce often said that spiritual awakening doesn't happen in great flashes of revelation, but in quiet acts of remembrance repeated every day. He reminded his followers that the divine rarely shouts, it whispers. And the clearest of those whispers is heard right after you wake up, when your conscious mind hasn't yet built its defenses of logic, fear, and distraction. In that fragile moment, your soul is still open. The veil between you and the unseen world is thin. If you speak from the heart, heaven listens. If you listen inwardly, heaven answers. That is the mystery of morning prayer, and it is why Cayce placed such importance on those first words of the day. They are the bridge between worlds, the moment when your human self decides whether to cooperate with the divine plan or drift into forgetfulness again. He described the energy of Christ as the purest expression of the divine blueprint within every soul. It's not a figure to be worshipped from a distance, but a living frequency that each person must awaken from within. To Cayce, Jesus was the perfect model, the one who fully embodied that vibration of oneness with God. But he insisted that the same potential lies dormant in every human heart. When you awaken each morning and consciously align your thoughts with love, patience, and forgiveness, you take a small step toward that same embodiment. You make the Christ not a memory of the past, but a living force in the present. That's why he said, each soul is a portion of the whole seeking to know itself as one with the Father. Science would one day echo this truth through discoveries in physics and biology, showing that everything is vibration, that thought and emotion carry measurable energy. Cayce anticipated this long before modern research confirmed it. He said the spirit moves through frequencies of light, sound, and intention. When you begin your day speaking words of divine harmony, you literally alter your vibrational pattern. Your brain, heart, and nervous system synchronize to higher frequencies. The result is not imaginary, it's physiological, emotional, and spiritual transformation working as one. The peace you feel isn't an illusion, it's resonance. You have tuned yourself to the same pattern that sustains creation itself. But Cayce also warned that this alignment must be chosen daily. You cannot store spiritual energy like water in a jar. Every morning, he said, you start again. Each dawn offers a new chance to remember who you are and whom you serve. That is why he compared the spiritual path to farming. The soil of consciousness must be cultivated every day. The words you speak are the seeds, your thoughts are the water, and your actions are the sunlight. Neglect the soil, and weeds of fear will take over. Speak carelessly, and you'll harvest confusion. But speak truth, gratitude, and love, and the harvest will be peace. Many who read Cayce's work misunderstood his focus on Christ consciousness as mere theology, but his readings show that it was practical psychology of the soul. He saw humanity as divine beings temporarily asleep, dreaming they are powerless. The words we choose upon waking are like an alarm clock for the spirit. They remind the sleeping divinity within us that it's time to awaken. Every good morning can become a sacred invocation if said with awareness. Good morning, Father. I am ready to serve. In that instant, your life ceases to be random. It becomes guided, purposeful, infused with grace. He often reminded his students that Christ never left humanity. Humanity left Christ. The divine presence has never gone anywhere. It waits patiently for recognition. The energy of Christ cannot force its way into your life. It responds to invitation. And that invitation begins with your voice, your breath, your awareness, the moment you awaken. If you start your day by saying, I live in thee, you open the gates of consciousness for divine energy to flow through your day. You become an instrument, and through you the world hears the melody of heaven again. So tomorrow morning, before your thoughts rush in, pause. Feel that sacred stillness between dreams and waking. Don't grab your phone. Don't think of your to-do list. Instead, whisper the words Cayce offered. Father, let my thoughts, my words, my deeds be in harmony with thee. Say them slowly, as if the universe itself is listening, because it is. Then breathe. Feel how something shifts, how the invisible becomes tangible, how peace replaces noise. That is the Christ energy entering your awareness, responding to your call. And as the hours unfold, you'll notice that everything feels different, not because the world has changed, but because you have. Cayce said that when a soul truly begins its day in alignment with the divine, everything it touches carries a different vibration. The same conversations, the same tasks, the same struggles begin to feel different because your perception shifts from fear to faith. You stop reacting from habit and start responding from awareness. That is the silent miracle of attunement. It doesn't change the outer world first, it changes the lens through which you see it. He compared this to sunlight breaking through a storm. The clouds don't vanish immediately, but suddenly the landscape is illuminated. That light is understanding, and with understanding comes peace. When your morning begins in harmony with the Christ energy, you carry that light into every interaction. Even your silence becomes healing. He often explained that the soul's purpose is not escape, but transformation. You're not here to run from the world, but to redeem it through love, one moment at a time. When you speak divine words at dawn, you prepare yourself to meet the world as an instrument of peace. You become aware of how your energy affects others, how your tone, your patience, your presence can lift a room or darken it. Cayce taught that our vibration is the real language of the soul. Words are the vehicles, but energy is the message. If your first words each morning align with divine truth, everything you communicate during the day carries that same frequency. People sense it, even if they don't understand why. They feel safer, more open, more alive around you. You are silently doing God's work simply by being attuned. He described prayer not as asking for favors, but as the soul remembering its origin. When you pray upon waking, you're not informing God of your needs. He already knows. You're reminding yourself that you belong to something infinite, that you are not the storm but the sky behind it. This remembrance strengthens your spirit so that when challenges come, you face them with calm authority instead of fear. Cayce said that those who live this way don't avoid suffering, they transform it. Pain becomes a lesson, delay becomes protection, and uncertainty becomes trust. Every experience turns into a classroom for the soul. He once told a seeker, "Each day is a new creation. Make it in the image of your highest thought." That's the essence of this teaching. The first words of the morning are the brushstrokes on the canvas of your day. If you begin with complaint, you paint in gray. If you begin with gratitude, you paint in light. And light attracts light. It's not magic, it's law. The universe responds to the vibration you hold, not the words you repeat without meaning. That's why intention matters more than form. Cayce emphasized that no phrase has power unless it's spoken from the heart. The divine hears sincerity, not perfection. The more you practice this, the more you start to notice divine orchestration in small things. The right person calling at the right time, a problem resolving itself, a sudden sense of peace in the middle of chaos. Cayce called these evidences of attunement, signs that your inner and outer worlds have synchronized. The more consistent you are with your morning alignment, the stronger this synchronicity becomes. You stop living by chance and start living by purpose. And in time, the Christ energy you awaken within yourself begins to heal others, without preaching, without effort. It flows naturally because love in motion is its own sermon. Cayce said that even the smallest soul attuned to God becomes a point of light in the world's darkness. He believed that one conscious person could affect the vibration of thousands simply by holding inner peace. The kingdom of heaven, he said, is within, and when found there, it shines without. So every morning that you begin in harmony, you are not only saving your own day, you are helping to restore balance to humanity's collective energy. That is the quiet revolution of spirit. Not noise, not fame, but vibration. And it begins with one whisper. Father, let my will be thine. This is the wisdom that has echoed through every age, but Cayce gave it form for our modern world. In the noise of ambition and technology, he reminded us that power still lies in silence, in that one sacred minute after you wake up, before the world takes hold of you. There, between breath and thought, heaven waits, and all it needs is your consent. If this message has stirred something in you, take a moment now, before you forget, to like this video, subscribe, and share what phrase you'll begin using each morning. Your comment might inspire someone else to awaken consciously for the first time. Together we can bring light back into the first moment of every day. As Cayce neared the end of his life, his message became even simpler. Begin each day with him. He repeated it again and again, because he knew that most people look for God in temples, in books, or in miracles, while ignoring the quiet place where he waits, inside the human heart. He said that the divine presence is always there, but your awareness must open the door. That door opens each morning. When your eyes first awaken and your lips move in recognition of the divine, the door swings wide and light floods in. You are no longer a lost soul searching for meaning. You are a conscious extension of God remembering itself. Cayce explained that this remembrance is the entire purpose of existence. The soul's journey is not about becoming something new, but awakening to what it already is. A fragment of the Christ mind learning to express love in a world that forgot love. He often compared this awakening to the rising sun. No matter how long the night, the sun never fails to rise. Likewise, the divine spark within you never goes out. It only waits behind clouds of doubt, fear, and routine. Each morning gives you a chance to clear those clouds. When you choose to greet the day with words of truth, you invite that inner sun to shine through you. And the world needs that light now more than ever. Cayce believed that the transformation of humanity would not come through politics or force, but through individual awakening, through millions of souls remembering who they are at dawn. Every person who begins their day in awareness adds a new ray to the collective light of the planet. He said that as more people attune themselves to the Christ vibration, the world's frequency will shift, conflicts will lose power, fear will dissolve, and the higher ideals of compassion and unity will emerge naturally. This was not prophecy, it was energetic law. The external world reflects the consciousness of its inhabitants. If humanity wakes up angry, the earth trembles. If humanity wakes up in love, creation sings. That is why Cayce's teaching about morning alignment was not a small ritual. It was a key to global healing, and it begins with you, with your breath. With your first word of the day, he also spoke about forgiveness as the highest form of morning prayer. Before your mind re-enters the noise of daily life, release the weight of yesterday. Let go of resentment and judgment. Say silently, "As I awaken to this day, I forgive as I am forgiven." This, he said, clears the channels of the heart, so divine energy can flow freely. Without forgiveness, the Christ light cannot fully shine, because love cannot coexist with bitterness. Forgiveness doesn't mean approval. It means freedom. It means you stop drinking the poison of anger and start drinking the water of peace. When this becomes your first act of the day, the entire vibration of your life changes. Cayce promised that those who live this way will begin to feel a quiet companionship guiding them. They will sense inspiration in ordinary things, receive ideas from seemingly nowhere, and find strength in moments that once felt unbearable. The reason, he said, is that their consciousness has become a channel. The Christ energy no longer visits occasionally, it dwells. Life ceases to feel random because you start to see divine intelligence moving through everything. The faces you meet, the challenges you face, even your own pain, all become part of a sacred dialogue between you and the Creator. You realize that you were never separated, you were simply asleep. So tomorrow morning, when your eyes open, remember this. The universe pauses to listen. Your soul stands between the dream and the day, waiting for its command. Don't waste that holy moment with words of fear or complaint. Speak light, speak truth. Speak the name of the one who gave you breath. Whisper it gently. Father, let me walk in your peace. And then rise, carrying that vibration into the world like a torch, because somewhere, someone's darkness will be lessened by the light you bring. Edgar Cayce's legacy is not a mystery to be studied, it's a practice to be lived. He didn't ask us to worship his words. He asked us to remember our own. The words we speak when we awaken are the keys that unlock the divine within. Use them wisely. Because the first thing you say each morning is the first thing creation hears. Let it be love. Let it be truth. Let it be the Christ that lives within you, rising again with every dawn. What if everything you've been taught about your soul is only half the truth? Edgar Cayce, known as the sleeping prophet, revealed something that completely redefines how we understand who we are. He said your soul and your spirit are not the same, and that one of them carries the eternal spark of God, while the other holds the story of every life you've ever lived. This distinction changes everything: how you see death, reincarnation, heaven, and even your purpose on earth. Cayce explained that the spirit is the divine essence that can never be corrupted, but the soul is the traveler. It learns, fails, grows, and carries the record of your choices across lifetimes. Most people live their entire lives without ever realizing this difference. And that ignorance, he said, keeps the soul trapped in confusion and pain. What would change in your life if you finally understood who you really are? Leave a comment below sharing what you believe the soul truly is. Now let's uncover what Edgar Cayce discovered about the shocking difference between your soul and your spirit. For Edgar Cayce, the difference between the soul and the spirit wasn't a theory, it was a divine revelation that came through hundreds of his documented readings. When he entered a deep trance, Cayce could access what he called the Akashic records, a spiritual archive where every thought, action, and emotion of every soul was preserved. From that sacred dimension, he saw that the human being is not one thing but three: body, soul, and spirit. The body is the temporary garment, the vessel through which the soul experiences material life. The spirit is the spark of God, pure, perfect, unchangeable. And between them, the soul acts as the bridge, the link that connects divine consciousness to human experience. Cayce said the soul carries both the memory of God and the scars of time. It is the part of you that learns, falls, loves, suffers, and grows through countless incarnations, always seeking to become one again with its spiritual source. The spirit, in Cayce's words, never sins, never fears, and never dies. It is the image of the Creator within you, but the soul, shaped by free will, can either reflect that light or hide from it. Every thought, every emotion, every action is a stroke on the canvas of your soul. That's why Cayce insisted that salvation isn't about escaping the world, but transforming it from within, through choices that align the soul with the spirit's purity. He warned that when the soul forgets its divine origin, it becomes restless, anxious, and lost in material illusions. But when it remembers that the Spirit of God lives within, everything changes. Life becomes a classroom instead of a battlefield, and suffering becomes a lesson instead of punishment. Cayce explained that this misunderstanding, the confusion between soul and spirit, is what keeps humanity spiritually asleep. We worship the outer, but we forget the inner. We pray for signs, while the eternal spirit inside us whispers constantly, waiting for us to listen. He often said that Jesus Christ was the perfect example of what it means to live as a soul fully surrendered to the Spirit. Christ's life showed that the divine and the human can coexist in harmony when love governs the will. To Cayce, the Christ Spirit wasn't limited to one man. It was the potential hidden in every human soul, the possibility of awakening the divine essence within. That's why he urged people to stop seeking God only in churches, books, or rituals, and start seeking him within the silence of their own hearts. "The kingdom of God is within you," he repeated, echoing the same words that Christ spoke. But finding it requires discipline, humility, and daily communion with that inner voice. Meditation, prayer, forgiveness, and acts of compassion were not just moral advice for Cayce. They were ways of remembering the soul's true identity. Every time you choose love over judgment, you lift your soul closer to the vibration of your spirit. Every time you serve someone selflessly, you allow the Spirit of God to act through you. When people asked Cayce if the soul and spirit were the same, he would say, "The spirit is life. The soul is the record of that life." That simple phrase carried profound meaning. Your spirit is what gives you existence, the divine breath that animates your being. Your soul is the story that breath has written through ages of experience. Understanding this, Cayce said, changes the way you see yourself and others. You stop judging people for their flaws because you begin to see them as souls in different stages of remembering who they are. You realize that even those lost in darkness carry the same spirit that lives in you, the same spark of the Creator. Cayce explained that the soul is like a traveler crossing vast landscapes of experience, lifetime after lifetime, always carrying fragments of light and shadow within. Every act of kindness expands the soul's light, and every act of selfishness darkens it, but neither can ever extinguish the spirit inside. The spirit remains untouched, eternal, radiant, and one with God. The soul's purpose, according to Cayce, is to gradually become aware of that inner perfection and reflect it more purely with each incarnation. He said that this journey is not a punishment, but a divine opportunity. Each lifetime is a classroom, each challenge a teacher, each relationship a mirror showing where love still needs to grow. When you begin to see life this way, you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What is this trying to teach my soul?" That shift in perception is what Cayce called awakening. He also warned that many souls lose themselves in material ambition, believing that happiness is found in wealth, fame, or power. But these, he said, are only shadows that fade. True fulfillment is spiritual alignment, the state where the soul no longer resists the will of the spirit. He compared it to tuning an instrument. When your thoughts, emotions, and actions vibrate in harmony with your divine essence, peace flows naturally. That's when you feel the presence of God, not as an idea, but as a living force guiding every breath. Cayce believed this harmony was what Christ lived perfectly. Jesus didn't come to show superiority, but to show what it looks like when the human will is one with divine purpose. When people asked Cayce how to strengthen their connection to the Spirit, his answer was always simple but profound. Live with love. Love, he said, is the language of God, the vibration of the Spirit itself. Every act of love aligns the soul with its source. Forgive those who hurt you, because forgiveness dissolves the barriers that block that divine current. Pray not to change God's mind, but to open your heart to His. Meditate, not to escape reality, but to listen to the still small voice within that always knows the truth. He explained that God never stops speaking, but most of us live surrounded by so much noise that we forget how to hear Him. The soul rediscovers peace the moment it listens again. That is why Cayce said that spiritual growth is not about acquiring more knowledge. It's about remembering what you already are. Beneath your fears, your desires, your doubts, there is a quiet awareness untouched by time or pain. That is your spirit. When you act from that awareness, even in small ways, offering comfort to a stranger, showing patience instead of anger, you are living as a soul guided by the Spirit. Every time you choose compassion, you move one step closer to God's light. If this message speaks to your heart, take a moment to like this video and subscribe, because together we are building a community of souls learning to live through Spirit. Cayce also spoke about the moments after death, when the soul leaves the body and becomes fully aware of its own record. The Spirit, still pure, watches as the soul reviews the story it has written. There is no external judgment, only the deep recognition of truth, the realization of how your choices aligned or resisted the divine will. The soul feels the joy of every act of love and the weight of every missed opportunity to express it. But even then, God does not condemn. He calls the soul to continue its journey toward light. That's why Cayce emphasized mercy and grace as the essence of divine justice. The Spirit never punishes, the Spirit only invites. Cayce often reminded his followers that spiritual awakening is not a sudden miracle, but a daily discipline. He said that even small, consistent acts of love and prayer can awaken the soul more deeply than years of religious study without humility. He explained that faith without action is incomplete, because the soul must express what it knows. The Spirit gives life, he said, but the soul must choose how to use it. That means every thought, every emotion, every decision carries spiritual consequence. When you think with anger, you cloud your soul's light. When you think with love, you let God shine through you. Cayce believed that our world reflects the collective condition of humanity's soul, which is why healing yourself contributes to healing the planet. He urged everyone to begin within, to forgive, to pray, to be still, to love, and to remember that the Spirit is not outside reaching in, but within reaching out. He taught that the body, too, responds to the alignment between soul and spirit. Many of his readings connected illness to spiritual imbalance, showing that resentment, guilt, and fear can manifest as physical suffering. But the cure, he said, is not only medical, it is spiritual. When the soul finds peace, the body follows. He described healing as a natural consequence of harmony between the divine and the human. This is why he encouraged prayer not just for health, but for understanding. To Cayce, every illness was a message, a gentle reminder to realign the soul with its source. And every healing was evidence of God's Spirit still moving through creation. When people asked if the Spirit could ever be lost, Cayce was clear. The Spirit cannot be destroyed, but the soul can forget it. Forgetfulness is what he called spiritual sleep. The soul wanders through experiences, building identities and desires, mistaking temporary pleasures for eternal joy. But at some point, every soul begins to hunger for something higher. That hunger is the call of the Spirit awakening within. It might appear as a moment of pain, loss, or crisis, but beneath it is grace, guiding the soul back to remembrance. Cayce said that suffering is not divine punishment, it is divine permission, the universe allowing the soul to rediscover what truly matters. He also said that Jesus was not a distant figure to be worshipped, but a living example to be followed. To Cayce, the Christ Spirit is the pattern that every soul can awaken to. "Let the mind of Christ be in you," he would quote. The Christ consciousness, he explained, is not an exclusive gift. It is the natural state of the Spirit when it fully expresses through the soul. When you forgive your enemies, when you love without expecting return, when you serve with joy, you are already living in Christ consciousness. The Spirit in you and the Spirit of God become one vibration. That unity is the goal of existence, to let God live through you so fully that fear disappears and love becomes your nature. Cayce said that this is salvation, not through belief alone, but through transformation. Cayce explained that the greatest tragedy of humanity is forgetting its divine origin. He saw that most people pray to a distant God while carrying that same God within. "You are a spiritual being having a human experience," he said, long before those words became popular. This wasn't poetry. It was literal truth. The Spirit within you is the fragment of the Creator, and when the soul lives in harmony with that truth, life gains purpose, direction, and peace. Cayce believed that sin is simply separation, the moment the soul acts without awareness of its spirit. Every selfish choice, every lie, every cruelty is a symptom of that forgetfulness. But the moment you remember that God lives through you, you stop fearing death, you stop comparing yourself to others, and you begin to live with quiet certainty that you are loved beyond measure. The Spirit doesn't condemn the soul for wandering. It patiently waits for the soul to awaken and return home. He often said that we do not earn heaven. It's already within us. The task is not to climb toward God, but to uncover what blocks our awareness of Him. Pride, anger, and guilt are the clouds that hide the light, but prayer and service clear the sky. Cayce taught that the most powerful prayer is not asking for miracles but saying, "Use me, Lord." When the soul prays this way, the Spirit flows freely, healing wounds, softening hearts, and restoring purpose. He saw this alignment as the true meaning of redemption, not escaping sin, but transforming it into wisdom. Even the darkest experiences become sacred when the soul learns from them. Cayce said that God wastes nothing, not even pain, because every tear can become light if the soul chooses to understand. He also taught that the earth itself is a school for the soul. Every challenge, every joy, every heartbreak has meaning in the divine plan. The people you love and the people who test you are all instruments of growth. Some souls come into your life to teach you compassion. Others come to mirror your own weaknesses so you can heal them. Once you see this, judgment fades. You realize that everyone is doing the best they can from their level of awareness. This doesn't mean excusing wrongdoing, but understanding that the remedy is always love. Cayce said that love is the one force that survives death, and that the connections built in love continue in the next world. The soul that learns to love purely has already touched heaven. He reminded his followers that Christ never promised an easy path. The cross, he said, symbolizes the meeting point between human will and divine will. To follow Christ is to surrender to the Spirit within and allow it to guide even when the way is uncertain. The more the soul yields, the more the Spirit shines. That surrender is not weakness, it's power. The world teaches control, but God teaches trust. And when you trust, the burden lifts. You begin to live as Cayce described, not as a body struggling to find the Spirit, but as a spirit using a body to express divine love. That realization alone can transform the way you see life, death, and eternity. Cayce's message was never meant to create followers. It was meant to awaken children of God who had forgotten their origin. He said that if every person truly understood the difference between the soul and the spirit, war, hate, and division would end. Because once you recognize that everyone carries the same divine essence, judgment becomes impossible. The Spirit in you is the same Spirit in your neighbor, in your enemy, in the stranger you overlook. We are many souls, but one Spirit. The illusion of separation is what causes all suffering, and the remembrance of unity is what brings salvation. That's why Cayce insisted that love is not an emotion, it's a spiritual law. The more you live in harmony with that law, the freer your soul becomes. You stop reacting with fear and start responding with understanding. You realize that every conflict is just the soul's struggle to remember the peace it already possesses. In his final years, Cayce said the future of humanity depended on whether souls would awaken to their divine nature or remain asleep in material darkness. He saw that the coming age would test our collective faith. Technology would grow, but only a few would keep the wisdom to use it for love. He warned that the world's salvation would not come from politics or power, but from individuals who live as examples of Spirit-led lives. Each person who forgives, who prays, who loves without reason, becomes a light pushing back the world's shadow. He called this the return of the Christ consciousness, not one man descending from the sky, but millions of souls remembering their divine spirit within. To Cayce, the soul and spirit are not two separate forces fighting inside us. They are a dance. The spirit provides the music. The soul learns the steps. Every mistake, every success, every moment of forgiveness refines that dance until it becomes graceful again. The day you stop identifying with your pain and start identifying with your purpose, you begin to live as spirit in form. The voice of God, once distant, becomes intimate. You feel guided not because you are special, but because you are finally listening. That is the transformation Cayce lived and wanted others to experience. A faith so real that it turns knowledge into love and love into service. Before we close, remember what Cayce taught. The spirit is the life, the mind is the builder, and the physical is the result. Your life right now is the reflection of your soul's construction. If you want to see change, build differently. Think with kindness, act with faith, and speak with love. The soul transforms through practice, not theory. And when it finally mirrors the purity of the spirit, peace flows effortlessly. This is what Jesus meant when he said, "I and the Father are one." You were never meant to reach God someday. You were meant to reveal him today through every thought and every action. If this message touched your soul, take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel and share your reflections in the comments. Your voice might awaken someone else's spirit. In the first moments after death, there's no darkness, no oblivion, only awareness. Cayce said that for most souls, the realization comes gently, like waking from a deep sleep. You look around and still see the same room, the same faces, yet something feels lighter. You're not bound by the weight of breath or heartbeat anymore. You think of moving, and suddenly you are already across the room. There's no pain, no struggle, only a quiet curiosity, as if your mind has been freed from gravity itself. This is the soul's awakening, the sacred second birth that Jesus spoke of when he said, "You must be born again." It isn't a metaphor for religion, it's the law of the Spirit. Cayce described how some souls, upon leaving the body, feel an instant pull upward, while others remain near the earth for a short while, depending on their attachment to material life. Those who lived with faith, compassion, and forgiveness ascend smoothly. Those consumed by anger, greed, or guilt feel a certain heaviness until they accept light and release the past. The soul doesn't face punishment, it faces truth. That truth is love, reflected back through every thought, every act, every moment we lived on earth. During these early moments, Cayce said that thought becomes creation. What you think, you see. What you fear, you meet. What you love, you attract. It's as if God gives you an immediate mirror to understand your spiritual condition. For those who cultivated love and humility, this reflection is beautiful beyond words. A river of light, warm and peaceful. For those who neglected love, it's a call to awaken, not a sentence of suffering. Every soul, no matter how lost, is still guided by divine mercy. The Bible echoes this when Jesus told the thief on the cross, "Today you will be with me in paradise." That promise wasn't for the righteous. It was for the repentant heart. Cayce confirmed that no soul is abandoned. Even in confusion or darkness, helpers of light, angels, family spirits, and guides stand ready. They don't judge, they remind. They whisper gently, "You are not your mistakes. You are loved. You are eternal." If this message touches your heart, pause for a second. Leave a like on this video so it reaches more souls who need peace about death. And write in the comments if you've ever felt a presence of someone who has passed. I'll mark every heart myself. Now, back to those sacred first minutes. Cayce said that when the soul realizes it's free, gratitude floods in. Many souls see a soft radiance, what he called the light of God's memory. It's not outside you, it's within you, expanding. You feel a pull toward that light because it feels like home. The transition is never random. Cayce said the state of your heart at the final breath shapes the path of the soul's awakening. A mind at peace attracts higher vibration. A restless spirit takes longer to recognize divine order. This is why forgiveness and faith matter so deeply while we're still here. They build the spiritual body that carries us forward. Jesus said, "In my Father's house are many mansions." Cayce interpreted that as realms of consciousness, planes of awareness where every soul continues its growth. The first moments after death are simply the doorway to one of those realms. He often compared death to walking through a fog that slowly clears. At first, shapes seem familiar yet distant. Then light breaks through, and the soul realizes it was never alone. Loved ones appear, not always as they looked physically, but radiant, whole, and vibrant. They come to comfort, not to cling. Cayce said they remind the new arrival that this is not the end but a continuation of purpose. Every soul is guided to review, to understand, and to prepare for the next lesson in its eternal journey toward oneness with God. In the next moments after death, the soul begins to feel drawn away from the world it once knew. Cayce explained that this is not a violent departure, but a natural return to vibration, like a wave flowing back to the ocean that gave it birth. Many souls sense a pathway of light forming ahead, a tunnel, a bridge, or sometimes a radiant field. These are not physical places, but symbols of movement toward higher consciousness. As the spirit moves through, the memories of pain and fear begin to dissolve. replaced by an overwhelming realization: everything that ever existed was connected by love. This is the instant when the soul sees life from God's perspective, not as a series of random events, but as a carefully woven pattern of growth, forgiveness, and grace. Cayce said the soul often meets what he called the Hall of Records, a space of awareness where the soul reviews its earthly life. It's not a courtroom, it's a classroom. You see every choice not through shame but understanding. You feel what others felt because of your words, your kindness, or your neglect. It's God's perfect justice expressed through compassion. The soul recognizes that every joy and every sorrow was a lesson designed to awaken love. This is what the Bible means when it says, "You will reap what you sow." It is not punishment, it is divine education. Each act of love becomes light. Each act of cruelty becomes a call for healing. During this review, Cayce said, "The soul may hear voices of those it affected, but not in accusation. They speak through the vibration of thought, forgiving or inviting forgiveness. It's a conversation of the heart, not of the mouth. The soul then decides, in harmony with divine law, what it must experience next to continue evolving." Jesus spoke of this when he said, "Be perfect even as your Father in heaven is perfect." Perfection, in Cayce's interpretation, isn't about flawlessness. It's about returning to complete awareness of God's love. Each life, each death, is one more step toward that awakening. If you've ever lost someone and wondered if they can still feel your prayers, yes, they can. Cayce revealed that prayers of love and forgiveness act like light that reaches souls still adjusting to their new state. They sense that light and move toward it. That's why your prayers matter, not only for those living, but for those who have crossed over. When you speak their names with love, you help them find peace. So take a moment. If someone you love has passed, write their initials in the comments below as a silent prayer. I'll mark each with a heart, and together we'll send light to them. As the soul continues forward, the light becomes brighter, yet softer. It feels like returning to a place you've known forever. Cayce said that those who have prepared spiritually, through kindness, faith, and service, experience this transition as joy beyond words. They are greeted by guides, radiant beings who assist them in understanding where to go next. Some enter realms of rest, others move directly into dimensions of learning or service. It depends on the readiness of the soul, not on religious labels. Cayce often reminded that heaven and hell are states of mind, not locations. Heaven is awareness of God's love. Hell is separation from it. This truth echoes the parable of the prodigal son. The father never closed the door. The son simply had to remember the way home. Death is the same. No matter how far a soul has wandered, God waits with arms open, ready to receive. The first moments after death are God's gentle whisper saying, "Come home, my child. You were never lost." Cayce's readings remind us that we do not prepare for death by fearing it, but by living in alignment with Spirit now. The more love we practice on earth, the less fear we carry beyond it. As the soul rises further, Cayce said, it begins to sense harmony beyond anything known on earth. Time no longer feels linear. Instead, every moment feels eternal and filled with meaning. The soul begins to remember where it came from, its divine origin. Some described it as hearing a celestial music, not with ears but with consciousness itself, a vibration that resonates through every fiber of being. This music is the presence of God, the word spoken at creation, still echoing through eternity. Cayce connected this directly to the verse from John. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. To the soul, this is no longer scripture, it's experience. In those first experiences of higher awareness, the soul understands that all separation was illusion. Every person, every life, every form of creation is one field of divine energy. Cayce often said that this realization is the beginning of true heaven. Heaven, he explained, isn't a golden city above the clouds. It's a state of unity where fear, guilt, and judgment dissolve completely. There is only light, understanding, and love. The soul is greeted by guides who help interpret what it sees, because the brightness can feel overwhelming. These guides are often the souls of loved ones or beings Cayce called the children of light, those who have served God through many lifetimes and now assist others. As the spirit grows comfortable in this realm, Cayce said, Christ himself may appear, not as a man in robes, but as radiant consciousness, pure compassion. The soul instantly recognizes him, no matter what religion it held on earth. His presence is not a test, it is homecoming. In his light, every pain dissolves, every question is answered. Cayce emphasized that Jesus is not the judge of souls, but their redeemer, the eternal pattern of divine love that lives within each of us. He is the bridge between human limitation and divine awareness. Meeting him in the afterlife is like remembering the truest part of yourself, the spark of God that never died. For those who lived without faith, Cayce said, the meeting with Christ is not punishment, but awakening. The light reveals who they really are, souls of infinite worth who simply forgot. Some turn away briefly, ashamed of their choices, but his compassion never changes. Come unto me, he says, all who are weary, and even in death they come, because in that realm, truth is irresistible. This is why Cayce urged people to seek God now, not through fear of judgment, but through love of truth. Death doesn't end our journey, it magnifies it. Every lesson unfinished in life becomes the first lesson of eternity. If this reflection brings peace to your heart, take a moment and share this video with someone who fears death. Let's fill the world with understanding instead of fear. Comment below how you imagine heaven feels. I'll heart your comment personally, because when we speak of the afterlife, we are also speaking of life itself. Cayce said the greatest discovery after death is that love is never wasted. Every prayer, every act of kindness, every tear shed for someone, it all lives on, forming the very substance of heaven. And perhaps the most beautiful truth of all is this: those you love are not gone. They are near, closer than breath. They visit you in dreams, in sudden warmth, in moments of peace you cannot explain. Cayce confirmed that the boundary between worlds is not a wall, but a veil, thin, luminous, and responsive to thought. When you think of them with love, they feel it. When you pray for them, it reaches them. And when you finally cross over, they will be there, waiting, smiling, saying, "We told you love never ends." As the soul continues its ascent, Cayce said it eventually reaches a point of perfect stillness, a place of awareness where all longing turns into understanding. Here the soul no longer asks, "Why did this happen?" because it sees how every event, joyful or painful, was part of its divine education. This is what Jesus meant when he said, "You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." The truth is that life and death are two halves of the same breath. Nothing that was loved is ever lost. In that silence, the soul feels God not as a distant ruler, but as the essence within every heartbeat, every sunrise, every act of forgiveness. Cayce explained that once the soul regains clarity, it enters what he called the planes of preparation, realms where it rests, learns, and plans its next steps in the eternal journey. Some souls remain in these heavenly dimensions for what would seem like centuries in earthly time. Others, guided by compassion, choose to return to the material world to serve and grow. Reincarnation, in Cayce's words, is not a punishment, but a gift, another opportunity to express divine love more fully. Each life is a continuation of the last, shaped by choices and spiritual desires. It's God's way of giving us endless chances to learn how to love as He loves. In these higher planes, Cayce said, souls meet their spiritual families, groups that travel together through lifetimes, supporting one another's growth. Bonds of love never break, they simply shift across dimensions. That's why we feel deep, instant connections with some people on earth. Our souls recognize them. We have walked together before. Cayce often reminded his followers that the relationships we build here continue after death, refined by forgiveness and strengthened by understanding. Heaven isn't solitude, it's reunion. The soul also learns that every thought creates vibration, and those vibrations shape worlds. Cayce described how souls help build spiritual environments suited to their level of consciousness. The purest souls live amid radiant beauty, where colors sing and light moves like music. Others dwell in gentler places of healing, where they rest and regain balance. But none are abandoned. All are moving toward the same divine center. It's as if creation itself is a vast classroom, and every soul is both student and teacher, learning that love is the only truth. And yet, Cayce insisted that the ultimate goal isn't to escape Earth forever. It's to bring heaven into the earth through how we live. He said, "Spirit is the life, mind is the builder, the physical is the result. Every thought of kindness, every act of service becomes a brick in the foundation of the world to come. When we forgive, we create light. When we love, we open a channel for God to act through us. Death reveals this truth instantly, but life gives us the chance to practice it daily. So, the next time you fear death, remember this. What Cayce and Jesus both taught is that there is no death, only transition. When the body rests, the soul continues. When the heart stops, love flows on. And when we finally awaken on the other side, we will realize that heaven was never far away. It was within us all along. Let this message fill you with peace. If it did, leave a comment saying, "I am eternal," and I'll heart each one myself. Together, we remind the world that no life, no soul, no love ever truly ends. And now, as this reflection comes to its close, imagine what Cayce wanted each of us to understand most deeply, that life is not about avoiding death, but about preparing to live forever. He said that every breath we take is a conversation between body and soul, a reminder that spirit is our true nature. The first moments after death only reveal what has always been hidden inside us, the divine spark that never fades. What we learn there, we are meant to practice here. Each act of forgiveness on earth builds a bridge of light in heaven. Each prayer whispered for another strengthens the bond between worlds. This is why Jesus taught, "The kingdom of God is within you." He wasn't speaking of a distant paradise, but of the consciousness that already connects us to eternity. Cayce often reminded his followers that heaven is not reached by dying, but by awakening. Every day we die a little to the illusions of fear, pride, and resentment, and we are reborn into greater awareness. The same process that happens in the first moments after death happens in small ways, every time we choose love instead of judgment. Every sunrise, every act of compassion is a rehearsal for eternity. When we leave this body, the transition will not frighten us, because we will have already learned to live in light. The goal is not to seek escape, but to align with God so completely that death itself becomes just another step in the dance of creation. Think of those you love who have gone before you. They are not lost, they are evolving. They cheer for you from realms of light, waiting for the day you will remember them in spirit. When you think of them, do not weep as if they are gone. Speak to them in prayer. Thank them for the lessons they gave you. Cayce said that when we think of those in spirit with gratitude, they draw closer, and both worlds are healed. So tonight, before you sleep, close your eyes and whisper, "We will meet again." Because in the design of God, love always fulfills its promise. Death is not the end, it is the opening of the eternal eye. The moment you let go, you awaken in the arms of the one who created you. The Bible says, "Neither death nor life nor anything else in all creation can separate us from the love of God." That is the final truth that Cayce confirmed over and over. Nothing real can ever be lost. Your soul is real. Your love is real. And God's plan for you is eternal. So live with courage, forgive often, and remember, when your first moments after death arrive, they will not be filled with fear, but with recognition. You will look upon the light and realize you've been home all along. If this message brought you peace, share this video with someone you love. Let's help the world see death not as the end, but as the continuation of life in its purest form. Subscribe and turn on notifications if you want to keep learning from the wisdom of Edgar Cayce and the teachings of Jesus Christ. And remember, one day when we open our eyes beyond this world, we'll finally understand that nothing dies, because love never does.